പാരിസ്ഥിതിക അവബോധം ആരംഭിക്കുന്നത്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പാരിസ്ഥിതിക അവബോധത്തിന്റെ കാറ്റ് വീശിയത്. ചെറുപ്പക്കാരായ ധാരാളം പ്രകൃതി നിരീക്ഷകർ രംഗത്ത് വരാൻ തുടങ്ങിയത് സൈലന്റ് വാലി പ്രക്ഷോഭത്തിന് ശേഷമാണ്. സ്നേഹാർദ്രങ്ങളായ അവരുടെ നയനങ്ങൾക്ക് മുന്നിൽ പ്രകൃതി അവളുടെ രഹസ്യ നിധിശേഖരങ്ങൾ തുറന്നു വെച്ചു. ഇടവപ്പാതി ആരംഭിച്ചാൽ നമ്മുടെ പാടവും പറമ്പും കാടുമെല്ലാം തവളകളുടെ സംഘഗാനം കൊണ്ട് മുഖരിതമായിരിക്കും. നേരം വെളുത്ത് തിരഞ്ഞാൽ അവിടെങ്ങും ഒറ്റ തവളയെപ്പോലും കാണാനുമാകില്ല. മഴക്കാലമാണ് തവളകളുടെ പ്രജനന കാലം. തവളകളെ ആൺതവള ഇണയെ ആകർഷിക്കാൻ നിരന്തരം കരഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത് നമുക്ക് കേൾക്കാം. തവളകളുടെ ശബ്ദം സംഗീതത്തിന്റെ പല വിധാനങ്ങളായിട്ടായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ കേൾക്കുക. നമ്മുടെ വയലുകളെല്ലാം റബ്ബർ കാടുകളും കോൺക്രീറ്റ് കാടുകളും ആയി പൂക്കുന്നതിന് മുൻപ് കേരളത്തിൽ എവിടെയും ഇടവപ്പാതിയുടെ ആഗമനം വിളിച്ചറിയിച്ചിരുന്നത് പോക്കാച്ചി തവളകളുടെ സംഘഗാനമായിരുന്നു. ഇന്ത്യൻ ഉപഭൂഖണ്ഡത്തിന്റെ തെക്ക് പടിഞ്ഞാറൻ തീരത്തെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഉഷ്ണമേഖലാ പർവ്വത ശൃംഖലയാണ് പശ്ചിമഘട്ടം. ഉഭയജീവികളുടെ കാര്യത്തിൽ ഈ പ്രദേശം വൈവിധ്യത്തിന്റെ ഒരു ഖനിയാണ്. ലോകത്ത് മറ്റൊരിടത്തും കാണപ്പെടാത്ത അനേകം ജീവജാലങ്ങൾ ഇവിടെ മാത്രം ജീവിക്കുന്നു. ഇവിടെ നിന്നും പുതിയതായി നൃത്തക്കാരൻ തവള കുടുംബത്തെ കണ്ടെത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. പുതുതായി 14 ഇനം തവളകളെയാണ് ഗവേഷകർ പശ്ചിമഘട്ടത്തിൽ നിന്നും കണ്ടെത്തിയത്. ജൈവപ്രകൃതിയുടെ സന്തുലിതാവസ്ഥയിൽ ഏറെ പ്രാധാന്യമുള്ള ജീവിവർഗമാണ് തവളകൾ. ഇന്ന് പക്ഷേ ഇതെല്ലാം തന്നെ വിസ്മൃത കോടിയിലേക്ക് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഭൂമിയിലെ 25 തീവ്ര ജൈവ വൈവിധ്യ മേഖലകളിൽ ഒന്നായ പശ്ചിമഘട്ടത്തിൽ ഇനിയും ധാരാളം തവള ജാതികളെ നാമകരണം ചെയ്യപ്പെടേണ്ടതുണ്ട്. ശ്രീ സുജിത് വി ഗോപാലിനെ പോലെയുള്ള യുവ ശാസ്ത്ര ഗവേഷക പ്രതിഭകളാണ് ഈ ധർമ്മം ഇനി ഏറ്റെടുക്കാനുള്ളത്. നമ്മുടെ അറിയപ്പെടാത്ത മേഖലകളിലേക്കുള്ള ഈ വൈവിധ്യമാർന്ന വൈജ്ഞാനിക മേഖലയെ പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തുന്നതിന് ശ്രീ സുജിത് വി ഗോപാലിനെ കൊല്ലം ശ്രീനാരായണ കോളേജിന് വേണ്ടി ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി ഊഷ്മളമായി സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ വാക്കുകൾ അവസാനിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
Thank you, Sunil Kumar sir. Let me introduce today's speaker. I'm in great pleasure to welcome our speaker today, Sujith V. Gopalan. Currently, he is a research scholar at Department of Zoology, University College, Thiruvananthapuram. And right now, he has submitted PhD thesis and waiting for its review. Sujith V. Gopalan has always been passionate about wildlife and fascinated by animal behavior. He has blessed with many trips to remotes of Western Ghats, and which help him experience wildlife very close and understand them more. He is fortunate to work always with his own passion. Though he is interested in various faunal groups like ordinates, birds, butterflies, and reptiles, his research area is targeted on diversity mapping and population genetics of endurance frogs of the Western Ghats. He did his schooling at Kendriya Vidyalaya, Calicut, and did his BSc at St. Joseph College, Devagiri, Calicut as well. Sujith got his master's degree from Annamalai University, Chidambaram. He started his career as a guest lecturer in the Department of Zoology, St. Joseph College, Devagiri. Then he's turned to research. Sujith has worked as a senior research fellow at Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology, Thiruvananthapuram, and was also a research associate at Kerala State Biodiversity Board. He received many Best Paper Awards and external funds during his research career that spanned over 12 years, which included a research grant from Simo, Finland. Meanwhile, he is a conservation biologist and consultant for various NGOs and government departments like Kerala State Biodiversity Board, Thiruvananthapuram Museum and Zoo, and Department of Forest and Wildlife, Government of Kerala. He has 18 scientific publications and 3 book chapters in national and international journals. He is an expert consultant of WWF India, which deals with post-flood impact assessment on biodiversity, funded by Kerala State Biodiversity Board. He is also a conservation biologist at Society for Ordinate Studies. He is a team leader in Birds Race, Asian Waterfowl Census, and Kerala Bird Atlas since 2015 for WWF India. He also coordinated Butterfly Survey and Ordinate Survey at Periyar Tiger Reserve, Silent Valley National Park, Nilampur Wildlife Sanctuary, Vadachal Forest Division, and Parambikulam Tiger Reserve. Welcome you, dear young researcher Sujith V. Gopalan, to the 36th talk of our 3rd edition of Agora webinar series, organized by Srinarayana College, Kollam. Over to you, Sujith.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. That was a wonderful introduction, I think. Maybe we'll just pass on to our topic today. And I first would like to thank Srinarayana College for giving this wonderful opportunity to talk on this very interesting subject of mine called Croaking barometers, the frogs of Western Ghats. And so let's begin with this. Let me know if you could see my screen, because I just switched onto the screen, and there we go. Hope it is visible.
Yeah, it's okay. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. 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 Yeah. So we'll start with today's class. So maybe much of you will be very much interested to know why do I put a title called as Croaking barometers. Because, and yeah, rather than speaking out why do you call frog a barometer, I like to go take you through the slides that I prepared and to the presentation, and by the way, make you understand why do you call a frog a barometer. Of course, all of you know that much of the, like, even as madam introduced me, much of the faunal groups are good indicators of the environment and ecosystem, and frogs are one of the best among them. And another one I found, it was like ordinates. So there are a lot of faunal groups which we can depend upon to detect the environmental condition and to make necessary change conservation actions to conserve them and also the ecosystem. Because all of you know that maybe we have taken the food chain, the food web concepts very lightly, but what drives life is actually this balance, ecological balance between the food chain and food webs and all. And frogs play one of the vital role in these food chains and food webs. So maybe that is the one of the best definition of a living being, is that you be the integral part of a food chain and food web, and you play a vital role in maintaining the ecological balance. And one of the best things human beings do is that we try to create imbalance in this particular ecosystem balance. So what I like to present today is that I want, because I understand that when the term frog or amphibian comes to your mind, the first thing that clicks to your mind is a very few species of frogs. Like, you may identify the common tod, which you find around your houses and all, which comes around down the lights and other things to catch up insects and other things. Maybe you will identify some water species like this Hoplobotrychus tigrinus, because it has been long in the chart where humans have been using it as a delicacy. Its flies have been used for eating, frying it. Another frog is that green frog, which you find in ponds and maybe the urban little pools of water that settle down in after rain, the Eucalyptus species you may find in that. These are the 3 or 4 species that that comes to mind when we speak about frogs. But we should know that when I speak of frogs of Western Ghats, the diversity what is present in Western Ghats is just amazing. You have, like, whatever colors you find in nature, you have frogs belong to all those colors. And they are bright, they are brilliant, and one of the most beautiful creatures I found on earth. Maybe the concept that frog is ugly is just because that people don't have much awareness about frogs. And my presentation would largely be focused on making you understand what is the diversity in Western Ghats and what all types of frogs you find and what is the ecological role they play in the particular habitat. So let's begin with that. So when the term amphibians comes to your mind, the first thing you understand is that, oh, this is a living being that can live both in water and land. This is the first thing that comes in your mind. Maybe we need a correction for that itself, because amphibians are not just things that can live both in water and land. You cannot put a frog completely immersed in water for a so long time and you can make sure that that survives there. Just amphibians means that it spends one half of its life cycle in water and the other half in land. It's not just like it's a being that can live underwater and on land. It's like it spends one half of its life cycle in land and the other half in water. One of the specialty of amphibians is that they lay eggs. From the eggs, larvae comes out. Larvae goes under multiple growth phases to just evolve out or metamorphose out into adult. But when biology is a science of exceptions. If you take anything, you even the species concept has a lot of exceptions. You say species all look similar. Maybe I can give you some examples where species look different. Maybe in terms of color, maybe in size and all. So biology is a science of exception. When I say frogs do metamorphosis, all frogs do undergo metamorphosis, but maybe some undergo complete metamorphosis, some go partial, some it's very much little, and all these there is always an exception when you speak about biology. And second thing is that is fully agreed that these are cold-blooded animals. They don't have an inborn condition where they can generate heat from their body to regulate with the heat outside. Then other thing is that normally for all frogs, the skin is smooth and the skin is also moist. These two conditions are always prevailing. The skin is smooth and the skin is moist. And most of the frogs have webbed feet. And the extent of webbing is more or less very much complicated in frogs. It goes from very little to fully webbed. So these all things always vary. The frog in picture is called as Ghats-Sujith bedomi. It is one of the endemic species found in Western Ghats, one of the most beautiful frogs you find. But it's a high altitudinal frog found somewhere near 9,900 meters above sea level. So this is so now this is amphibians. Now under the class amphibians, you have three groups. Like we have Gymnophila, we have Urodila, and Salindina. That is Apoda, Chordata, and Anura. Now we'll see what all are they. When you speak about Gymnophila, everybody feels the first thing you comment, is this an earthworm or this is a snake? But as if you see the name suggests in that, oh my God, yeah. As if the name suggests in that this is a naked snake, as if this thing means that when you call it is an apoda or when you call it a Gymnophila, the term itself means gymnos is naked and ophinos means of a snake-like. So it's a naked snake. Like if you look at the species, you can understand, or look at the living organism, you can understand that they lack scales as that in the snakes. The body is completely smooth. And you can only see that they have some annular or rings on the body. Otherwise, they are just like snakes, except for this absence of scales. But these are amphibians. So they are snake-like amphibians, which is called as Sicilians. We have multiple family of Sicilians found in Western Ghats. Like you have Urodaphlus is there, you have Stiophis species, you have the Guineophis is there. So a lot of genus have been described from Western Ghats, and some of them are endemic to Western Ghats also. The other species that you find is Urodila. This is an amphibian, but we don't have a Urodila in Western Ghats because this is like you have a lizard-like shaped amphibian. We call that salamander or newts. These two belong to the species called as Urodila. As the term Urodila itself says, it has tail. Tail is evident because it is lizard-like and it has a very much evident tail. But we don't have this species. We don't have. When I say we don't have this species in Western Ghats, maybe it is there in Western Ghats. We are not discovered it. We are not quite sure about. For now, science doesn't know any species of Urodila from Western Ghats, but we have one from Himalaya called as Himalayan newt. Okay. Now our focus will be on anurans. Means this is without tail, and in that comes frogs and salamanders. So we are going to for the anuran diversity in Western Ghats. So in world, like this numbers is quite growing day by day. Like now we have some like more than 8,000 species of amphibians recorded from the entire globe, and almost 7,247 of them are anurans. Then it's frogs. So these frogs always contribute to the largest diversity of amphibians. The largest contributor for the diversity of amphibians is anurans, otherwise frogs or toads. In India, we have 447 species in India. Maybe this number slightly goes up by now, and of which 406 are anurans. From Western Ghats, we have 252 species recorded, and of which 226 are anurans. The last published checklist from Kerala indicates that we have 151 species. It is published in 2015. It was saying that we have 151 species of amphibians from Western Ghats. When I updated the checklist last time when I submitted my thesis, I had 185 species of amphibians in there, and of which 168 were anurans. So this is not just of my contribution, but a lot of research is going on there. A lot of new species has been identified recently. So the diversity has been mapped out by a lot of researchers, and this contributes the the increase in number to the checklist, increased number to the checklist. Now, as I said, the anuran diversity is totally comprising of toads and frogs, though there is no much difference between these two, but morphologically there is some variations when you say a toad and a frog. Normally for a toad, the skin is little leathery like, and it is not as smooth as in other frogs, smooth, and the skin is always moist. But in case of toads, the skin is little leathery in appearance because it is not smooth, and also you will not find it is much moisturous. It is little rough in condition, and you will have a lot of glands projecting out glands on the skins of this toads. So that is one of the identification feature where you can identify a frog from a toad. But there are some frogs which look like toads also. That is also interesting. As if I said, biology is a science of exception. So never put all characters to an individual and say, or what all process this characters is belonging to this class or this group or whatever. So always there is an exception. So there are some anurans which looks like toads also. Like in Western Ghats, we have a species called as Indirana frenoderma. Its name itself says that it's toad-like frog. Okay, so this is the specialty. And when it comes to toads in Western Ghats, we have three main genus in Western Ghats. One is Dattaphrynus, which contains our common toad, and then one species is called as Gatophryn is there, which is more related to water or water area. No, not in water, but it is associated with rock surface and other things which is closer to the water, closer to the high altitude streams actually. And another one is a tree toad called as Pedostylus. So we have these three species. Now you may be much familiar. Whenever it rains, you may hear this sound from your backside. Oh my God, there's something wrong. Okay, if you can hear this. So this sound is very familiar. Whenever it starts raining, irrespective of the time, especially in the post-monsoon time, you hear this sound very regularly. This is of our common called as Dattaphrynus melanostypus. And this is one of the interesting phenomena I found from on a place called as Devikulam, which is near to Munnar, where I found that one female is occupied by multiple males. This is called mass amplexing. So this is a battle for gene transfer, which male will be able to transfer his genes. Though the fertilization is external, it forms like a ball, a clumpy ball, and these males fight to get access to the female. So this is one of the video of the common frog from, you see, this is a female being clumped upon by multiple males, and this procedure is called as mass amplexing in amphibians. It's not only seen in toads, but you can find it in our common. You have a Rhacophorus species which is very common, which is green and called as Rhacophorus malabaricus. If you look at them in the post-monsoon season, you can see multiple amplex of these species in there. So similarly, many of the species shows multiple amplex. So this is one of the behavior noted in frogs. There is mass amplexing in frogs actually. So there are two species other than this common frog species. Though maybe when I say there is common frogs belonging to Dattaphrynus, there are many species which comes under the common Dattaphrynus genus. Like there is Microtympanum is there, Herpetologist is there. Like many species are coming under this genus. So that is one of the commonest frog species in Kerala also, the common toad, Dattaphrynus melanostypus. The other frog species is this. This is one of the species called as Pedostylus tuberculosis, This frog species, it is a tree frog actually. It's a tree toad actually, not a frog, tree toad actually. So it's found in trees normally, and it comes down the trees during the breeding season, which is also in the post-monsoon. And the sound that frog makes is also very peculiar and easy to identify if you know the sound. And it is found somewhere like some 700 meters above from the sea level, normally at those altitude. And at times I have seen some locations I have seen in 400 meters also. But normally it is found some 700 meters above sea level, and it is like one of the very interesting species of frog toads with very unique behavior and all. Other species genus is called as Gatophrine genus. There are two species in genus called as Gatophrine ornata, and other one is called as Gatophrine rubigina. Two species are there in genus, and these two species are mostly associated with rocks that near to the stream and other. So that is about the toads that is found in Western Ghats. Now we'll go to, okay. Now we'll go to the frogs. Like this is as if I said, when you say there is a frog species, one of the easiest way to identify them is that they have a smooth skin on the body, and it is always covered with a little moist thing, like some mucus is there on the body. We have some 150 to 159 to 160 species of frogs from Western Ghats. And interesting thing is that much of these are endemic to Western Ghats also. Much of these frog species are endemic to us. Like we have Dicroglossidae, this is not endemic to Western Ghats, but Micrysalidae is endemic to Western Ghats. Microhylidae is not endemic, but Ranidae is not endemic, but Nasica batrachidae is endemic, Ranixalidae is endemic, Nyctibatrachidae is endemic, and Rhacophoridae is not endemic. So among these also certain families are purely endemic to Western Ghats. Now, yeah, we'll go to the first genus of frogs found in Western Ghats called as Rhacophoridae. And the genus Rhacophoridae, this contains frogs, like we classify these frogs as tree frogs and shrub frogs. Two types are there, tree frogs and shrub frogs. Normally, all those are associated with some plants, not associated in the sense that they always try to remain on plants, they hardly come to ground. And one of the common species that you find in this is called, something is troubling me, yeah. This frog species is called as Pseudophylotus wienerdensis. And like one of the interesting thing about this species is that this species is found throughout Kerala. Actually, it is found from right from Trivandrum to up to somewhere near to Kasaragod district, in the borders of Kasaragod district, Wayanad. Although the name says it is wienerdensis, means it has been discovered, or holotype is being from Wayanad. The frog is found throughout Kerala part of Western Ghats. And the interesting thing is that it is found from almost sea level to some 1,000 meters. So this is one of the frog species which is adapted widely to multiple habitats, though they prefer to live on small shrubs and all. They are one of the interesting species. Why it is interesting is that I did some amount of research in these frogs. And this is a question to you. I would be happy if you could put an answer into the chat box. How many species do you find here? How many species of frogs are there in this one? Can you put an answer to the chat box? How many species are there? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? And you have 3 figures, so it should be somewhere near 1 and 3. Yeah, some answers has come up 1, 2, and I don't know why don't you say 3. So this is actually one species, right? These are frogs. Something is happening. Yeah, this is actually 3 species of frogs belong to the genus called as Pseudophylotus. The one that you see above, this one is Pseudophylotus wienerdensis. One towards the side on the top, this one, I mean the one on this one, the name 1 is Pseudophylotus wienerdensis, and the second one is Pseudophylotus amboli. How do you differentiate? Is that one of the easiest way to differentiate is that you look at the geographical range where you find. So that is one of the interesting things how we could differentiate this one, because they are very converged in their morphology, very similar to each other, but actually there are 3 species. One is Pseudophylotus carni, there is amboli and wienerdensis. After you don't, all those species found outside Kerala are amboli. The Western Ghats, all species found outside Kerala are Pseudophylotus amboli. One of the easiest way to identify them is to look at the geographical range of the species. Otherwise, they all have very similar or very converged morphology. They are very similar to each other. It's very hard to identify and differentiate them in field. You should be very seasoned herpetologist to identify them in field actually. Now this is the second question to you. Now I have put like, I think some 2021 photos are there. How many species of frogs are there? Can you put an answer into the chat box? How many species do you find in this one? I think much of you are confused. I think no answers coming up.
Yeah, good thing. A tricky question from you.
Yeah, 16, 18, 16, 17. I don't know how much I put. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay, 16 frogs are there. Okay, many numbers are coming up. Actually, these are all one species called as Pseudophylotus wienerdensis. These all are belonging to one species called Pseudophylotus wienerdensis. Though they look, you see, this is what makes it more hard to identify frogs in field, because one species exhibits 16 different colors. Okay, one species exhibits 16 different colors, and you have 3 species in the genus Pseudophylotus which looks very similar to each other. How do you identify the species in field? So this is one of the most challenging thing that I faced from this one. And one of the answers I gave to this is that I went for a phylogenetic tree to make sure that all my identification is correct. And this is how I discovered that there are 16 different color morphs for one single species called as Pseudophylotus wienerdensis. So this is one of the most interesting thing when you try to identify frogs in field. And this is one of the most challenging thing of frog taxonomy, because they can exhibit very wide range of colorations. When you look at 2 sister species also, they look very similar, and you just can't get confused. Is this a color morph or is it a different species? Now, yeah. So why did I start to identify frogs, color morphs of frogs? Is that because this is one of the fascinating thing I went for this color morph study, because in 2009 a study came up, not a study, actually a press report came up that color changing frogs are worshipped as god in India. But actually it is one of the unfortunate press reports, because even when you go to the Kani tribes or Malayan tribe or all other tribes in Western Ghats, they know quite well that all these frogs can exhibit wide range of coloration. I have myself experienced different tribes of Kerala. They are very well, and they have very good understanding of these creatures. They say to me that, sir, this may not be a single, like this may not be a different species, but a different color, because they are well aware of this one. But some unfortunate news came, sir, because you always know there should be some interesting stuffs in news so that you look into it. So this was one of the interesting news, and then I started to really search up how many types of colors these frog species exhibit, and I tried to find it out in almost all genus. And one of the most interesting thing is that I found this Pseudophylotus genus to exhibit the most number of color variations compared to all other genus. Now, that is about Pseudophylotus. You know now 3 species are there. This is the other genus in Rhacophoridae, which is called as Ravoschitis. And this frog is called as the variable bush frog, Ravoschitis acroparalagi. Now, it's interesting to see it calling actually, right? Bubbling up its this one. So why do this frog get this name, acroparalagi? This name itself suggests that this frog can come under different color variations. When this frog species was described, they actually describe it saying that this frogs can come in multiple colors, and the original description of this paper came up with 4 different color morphs of the species. And that's why this frog is named as Ravoschitis acroparalagi. Acroparalagi means varying in coloration, actually. Varying in acro means variable, and coloration it is. So that is, they have multiple color forms. So in 2012, I think I published a paper that initial paper came up with 4 color morphs in the species. In 2012, I published a paper saying that I have identified 6 species in this genus, and right now I have like 8 species. I have 8 different color morphs of this species called as Ravoschitis acroparalagi. Maybe I understand that maybe there are more color variations found in acroparalagi. Maybe I could look into it completely. But another interesting thing I found that if you could look at the last 2 photos, you could see that they are single frogs. I mean, a single individual. This green one can change color into brown within seconds. Like within 30-40 seconds, they can change the color from green to brown. So these are the things which fascinates frog research to me. And that is about Raworchis acroparallagi. So this Raworchis genus, no, these frogs are found in a variety of habitat. Though they are found in trees and bushes and all, they are found in like they occupy multiple levels. Like some are found near to the bushes in the ground, some are found on tree barks, some are found at a height of 10 meters, some in 20 meters, some are entirely restricted to canopies. And this is one of the species which is restricted to canopies called as Raworchis nerostigana. And other species, now one of the closest relative, which looks very similar to this one, is being described from this species is now restricted to north of Palakkad Gap. From south of Palakkad Gap, a very similar species, which is a sister species of this one, has been discovered. What is the common name of this frog says that this is like raindrop frog, it says, because the sound that makes, the calling sound the frog makes is very similar to the raindrops. So since it makes sounds very similar to raindrop, it is called as raindrop frogs. And scientifically, it is called as Raworchis nerostigana. And these frog species are found in canopy of trees, and you can identify them hearing to these raindrop sounds that make from canopies. So the other species in the genus is called as Mercurana meristica petricus, and you know this Raworchis species. And these two species are interesting in the fact that when it comes to Mercurana meristica petricus, this frog is name comes meristica petricus because this is associated with meristica swamps, one of the endemic ecosystems in Western Ghats, of which is entirely comprising of this meristica trees and its roots, which forms a very different ecosystem for the frogs to live. Recently, the frog was only known from south of Stengota Gap in Trivandrum and Kollam area. But recently, in last year, I published a paper because I got a new record from of this species from Vadachal. And interesting thing was that this frog was, when I got it from Vadachal, it was found in a swamp, which was a non-meristica swamp, but it can thrive in swamps also. And yesterday, very coincidentally, a beat forest, a lady from Vadachal sent me a photo. This is a male of the species, which is like, it has a color, honey color, it is actually. Female is green in color, which lateral sides, they have some mixture of green. And a lady BFO sent me a picture. I thought when she sent a picture, I was working on something. I gave her a message saying that it was the common species called as our Rhacophorus malabaricus, our Malabar gliding frog. Then after some time, one of my friends sent me a picture back saying, did you identify this one? Then I looked into it again. Yeah, I identified it wrong because it was the female of Mercurana meristica petricus. Because I myself forgot that I had identified the species from Vadachal. So somehow I didn't look at it in detail. Then I wrote back to her saying that, yes, this is a very rare species of this particular female. And other interesting thing of this frog is that apart from other frogs, which breeds along with monsoon, this frog breeds in post-monsoon ages sometime. It breeds before the rains that reach Kerala, that is before June season in Kerala, because June is the season which triggers monsoon in Kerala. It is found in post-monsoon season. They breed in post-monsoon. They come down from trees only to breed at this point of time. But you can find a lot of males sitting in low, like from 2 feet to 3 feet on the height from the ground on small branches. They call out in groups. They mate, they breed, and after breeding, by June, when the rain starts, they all go back to canopies. The interesting thing is that they dig the soil and they lay the eggs in the soil. And when this floor fills up with water in June, these eggs hatch out into tadpoles, and the tadpoles thrive. But all adults go back to the trees after this, for the time the monsoon starts in Kerala. So this frog is mainly found only during late April to May season. After that, this frog is not seen in Kerala because they are all built in high canopies of the trees. And they don't even call from the canopies. You can only hear them calling in May months, late April and May season. Other frog which is more associated with this frog species called as Raworchis oaklanderi. It is associated with the oaklanderi reeds. In Malayalam, you call it as Oda, because they get into the small holes in the oaklanderi reeds and lay their eggs there. And they are adapted to see all frogs which are adapted to some life which is more in dark. They all have this some star colored eyes or bright colored eyes and all. And this oaklanderi also has this star colored eyes. This species associated with oaklanderi reeds. Other species, you know, Raworchis is there, Rhacophorus species is there, Rhacophorus genus is there, which contains Malabaricus, lateralis, Calacadensis, other species are there. Then one of the common frogs called Polypodes maculatus. This frog species is like it is found in throughout Kerala, Western Ghats, and also in it's non-endemic to Western Ghats, found in other areas also. This is called Polypodes maculatus. We have another species called the Polypodes occidentalis is there. Polypedatus Sujokrujika is also there. And this is only one, like Vercurana metacisca, Bedomyxalus biju is the only species in the genus Bedomyxalus. Another interesting species endemic to Western Ghats is called as Ghats-Sujith astrops. These are all Rhacophoridae frogs I'm speaking about, the genus. Ghats-Sujith frogs, and as if its eye, you see its eyes is very beautiful. It's like some asterisks. So that's why this name comes as Ghats-Sujith astrops. It's asterisk shaped eyes, asterisk colored eyes. Another species of this genus comes is called as Ghats-Sujith variabilis, which is also very similar to this one, but found in little. This frog is found like altitude about some 1,200 feet above sea level, like in high altitudes of Western Ghats. The sister species called Ghats-Sujith variabilis is found somewhat in lesser altitude. One of the interesting thing is that these frogs which live in so high altitude, what happens to them is that you cannot even catch them. If you catch them and bring them down to the like from this altitude to little lower level, they automatically die out because they are adapted to that type of climate and that kind of temperature and moisture. So if you bring them back down from their ecosystem, they are hardly survive. So this is the important thing of all frogs. You know, for frogs, the euthanization temperature is something like 37 degree to 40 degree. If you hold a frog in your hand for quite some time, and if you could transfer the heat of your hand to this frog, the frog will automatically die off, because that is a euthanization temperature for frogs. So they are very much like susceptible to the changes in the environment, especially in the case of temperature. A higher temperature, like if the temperature reaches like 40 to 42 degrees Celsius in Western Ghats, then I'm quite sure that much of our diversity will be lost automatically. And this is one of the answers I'm giving for my title, why do I call it as barometers? Now, this is one of the common species in Western Ghats and found throughout the world, called as like in Southeast Asia. You have very diverse number of species in the world. We have 4 genus in Western Ghats, and this family is called as Dicroglossidae, which contains Eucalyptus species, one of the species that will be very familiar for you or much of you, because these are the frogs that is found in ponds. And this one, there are 2 different groups actually, though both comes under Eucalyptus. One is the green colored frogs, which are slightly larger. You have Eucalyptus caravali, you have Eucalyptus hexadactyla, is there, Eucalyptus alochi is there. These are all green colored frogs. You have Eucalyptus cynophilictus, mudigiri, these are all non-green colored frogs. So like that also you can separate these 2 groups into this genus called as Eucalyptus. One is green colored and which are non-green colored frogs. And they are actually, you can separate them in a phylogenetic tree also. Another species is a burrowing species in the Dicroglossidae called as Pyrotheca. We have some 2-3 species in Western Ghats. Another one is called like Minervaria. This is one of the diverse group of frogs, Minervaria. Actually, the Minervaria frogs were initially called as Sagivaria, and this species was known from Asia to Southeast Asia and on. Very large group which contains a lot of number of frogs actually. But these Minervaria frogs, then a review came, a phylogenetic analysis was done, and then the species found in Bangladesh and India, where these were grouped into a group called as Sakirana. Then again a review came where all these Sakirana were converted to Minervaria, because we had an initially described species in Minervaria called Minervaria chilapeta. So all frogs found in Southeast Asia and other areas are called as Fragivarias, and what is found in India is now called as Minervaria group. So earlier these all were Fragivarias and all, and Sakirana and all. Now these all frogs are called as Minervarias. And this is one of the most complicated group of frogs that can be identified in frog. They have very converged morphology because much of them occupy similar habitat conditions. You need to have the call recorded and studied multiple times to identify these breeds from calls. Even you cannot look at their morphology and identify them from. They're very difficult. They only very little species has very unique morphology. Like this one, Minervaria carolinensis can be identified easily. Compared to this, all other species are very hard to be identified in field, and it's a hectic task to identify Minervaria species without molecular data or bioacoustic data and all. And you may well know about the species of called Hoplobatrachus titanus. It's a species, scheduled species of frog actually, because this frog was used as meat for meat. It is edible in Kerala. It was used widely. That's why it was included into scheduled species. We have 2 species in Hoplobatrachus. One is Hoplobatrachus tigrinus, which is called as Indian bullfrog, and another one is called as Hoplobatrachus carasus. Both of them are found in Kerala also. And this is one of the frogs which can grow to very large size, and at some places this is an invasive species because these frogs one of the interesting thing of these frogs is that they can eat anything that can swallow, it will be taken by this frog. Like it can swallow birds. If it is able to swallow snakes, it will do that. So it is very much an invasive species because it can eat a wide species of frogs, reptiles, amphibians, and anything that it can eat, it can take in. And they grow to a large size, like very large size of frogs. They can consume anything that they can devour actually. Another one is called a genus group family of frog is called Ranidae group of frogs, and it is called as one of the true frogs in Western Ghats. We have three genus from Western Ghats. One is Clinotarsus and Hydrophylax and Indosilvera. Maybe some of the species in the genus are very familiar to you. And Indosilverana frogs, they are actually more associated with water when compared to other two. And this is an Indosilverana that is trying, maybe possibly Dhoni, I think. Yeah. So these, like as other Indosilverana frogs, they are morely associated with water. They thrive on the sides of rivers and stagnant water bodies, and they almost dip half their body into water and start calling by late evening and all, calling to mate actually. Another interesting genus is called as Clinotarsus cartipus. One of the interesting thing is that this frog has the largest tadpole from Western Ghats. Black colors, brownish black color, largest tadpoles found in Western Ghats, and you can find a large number of like some 300 to 500 group individuals of tadpoles schooling through this stagnant water bodies and all. In Kerala, you can find by like from early February to late March and all, you can find large groups. I think they have 2 breeding seasons in Kerala, and this is one of the interesting species because once they hatch out, they are found in large numbers on the sides of, like, if you go to Periyar and all in April and May and all, you can find large numbers on the sides of the Periyar Lake and all, and they move rigorously through this vegetation because they march through the vegetation and they go into the forest. And the others come back to the streams or lakes only to breed again by early January or February, I think. I'm not quite sure of the breeding cycle because I have seen multiple seasons in this. And another interesting species is called Hydrophylax malabaricus. Interesting thing about this genus is that these frogs try to associate with human beings because they get into human houses by in the daytime. If you in North Kerala and all, you can see that this frog comes to house in the early morning, like when you open your doors in 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the early morning, you can see this frog waiting outside, and it gets inside the house and goes out the house in the evening to hunt for the prey and all. So this is more or less one of the species that enjoy human transport also because they get into cartons, they get into your shoes and other things, and you carry off this species to other locations along with you without knowing that the species has got into your carton or shoes or something like that. So one of the interesting species that enjoys human transportation. Other the frogs found in Kerala belonging to Hydrophylax is called Hydrophylax malabaricus. And what you find in Western Ghats, I don't think the other species, Hydrophylax malabar, Bahuvistara, are not even restricted to Western Ghats. It is found in peninsular India, much of the, I think in Maharashtra and all, it has been recorded. So 2 genus are found in Western Ghats, Hydrophylax malabaricus and Bahuvistara. 2 species are there, and the other species, Indosilverana, as I said before, this species, this species also has a very converged morphology. But one of the interesting thing is that if you could know about the geographical range the species occupies, which is well described by the author who described it, you can identify the species. Like you can know that all found within the forest areas are this type of species found in lower, like the species Indrana aurantica, Indosilverana aurantica is found in Trivandrum area. Like low altitudes of Trivandrum area is occupied by Indosilverana aurantica. If you go to high altitudes, what you find is that here is an Indosilverana species called as Indosilverana srivini. Like that, if you go to Kollam area, another species called Dhoni is there. Like if you could identify the geographical range, it is the easiest thing to identify the species. Then, of course, a seasoned taxonomist can identify it from photos also by comparing its morphological characters. Now, this is another interesting species, which is brightly colored frogs called as Microhylidae, otherwise called as narrow-mouthed frogs. You have Melanobatrachus is there, Microhyla is there, which is a white species. Melanobatrachus is endemic to Western Ghats. Mystilosis is endemic to Western Ghats. Then you have Uperdon. These are the species that you find in Western Ghats. And one of the interesting things of Melanobatrachus indicus is that this species is commonly called as galaxy frogs because of the bright coloration it has in the body, as if it looks like you are looking into a galaxy. So that's why it's called as galaxy frog. It is found, it's also a shola species that is found in high altitude sholas of Western Ghats. You have another species called Uperon globulosus. Interesting thing of the species is that this is a burrowing species of frog. It comes about like it has different breeding time in Western Ghats actually. Some species are found post monsoon. Some species are found along with the retrieving monsoon, that is in October, November, and all. So they come out only to breed in this monsoon time actually. And you may be familiar, this Microhyla genus is like widespread, found in Southeast Asia to Asia and all. It is a widespread genus, consists of multiple species. We have Ornata and Rubra are one of the most common species in Western Ghats. You have other species are there, like Lateralis is there, Sholigiri is there. A lot of species are from Western Ghats, and these also have like though Microhyla, Rubra, Ornata, Dareli are all you can identify them very easily using morphology. Other species have very converged morphology actually, and they are difficult to identify. And difficult to identify. When I say it is difficult to identify, it's not easy as if we look into a butterfly. Like even in butterflies, you have some species which is very converged in morphology. Similar way, there are some species which is not easy to identify in field. You need to be a very seasoned herpetologist to identify them as well. And this is a recent discovery called as Multidisciplinary frangi, and it is something a new genus, very similar to Microhyla, but a new genus created called as Multidisciplinary frangi, discovered from Wayanad area actually, and it's an interesting species actually. Very different breeding biology and all. Now, this is another endemic family from Western Ghats called as Ranixalidae, and you commonly called as leaping frogs. I started my research career in this frogs, and this is one of the very interesting species of frogs I found from Western Ghats. They don't look so beautiful, or they are not so brilliantly colored like other frogs, but they are one of the best ecological indicators you find in Western Ghats actually. And now the Indirana frogs in Western Ghats are split into the genus. There are two genus found. Earlier, only Indirana genus was found in Western Ghats. Now the Indirana genus is split into two, called as Indirana and Walkerana. So this is Indirana species called as Paramakri, and this is called Walkerana leptodactyla. This is somewhat a high altitude frog, Walkerana leptodactyla. This, as if I said, this frog also has color variations on. Actually, I don't want to ask this question again, how many species are found actually. This is one species of found frog called Walkerana leptodactyla. And what makes this one of the best indicators is that apart from other frogs which breed in stagnant waters or which breed in flowing waters, these frogs are found on vertical rock surfaces with little trickling film of water. The rock surface which has a trickling film of water, which has a very shallow water flowing onto the rock surfaces, they breed in there. So Western Ghats, when the rain starts in July, you have this vertical rock surface always covered with a trickling film, or a small film of water is always there. These frogs lay, if you could see this eggs is laid on these rock surfaces. And the tadpole, the eggs hatch out. See, this is a stage where you have the egg is almost like to hatched out into a tadpole. And when the tadpole hatches out, it looks something like that. It's like a fish-like appearance, which though its forearms has come out, it's like a fin, and it can crawl through this vertical trickling film of water. And after some time, when it happens, is that its hind limbs grows very large. Its hind limbs grows very faster, and this frogs they are like highly camouflaged. We cannot actually, if you look at the figure G, you can see it is almost colored like rock, and you can only see them when they start moving. When you approach the rock, they start to jump over the rock surfaces. And like another interesting thing is that the tadpoles are high almost on the top of that. The high is dorsal actually, not like more like dorsal actually. It's actually more dorsal because it needs to see what is happening in its dorsal side if any predator is approaching from the dorsal side. So one of the interesting species which very different breeding biology, and this is what affects it also. Like if you have a irregular monsoon in Western Ghats, one of the frog species that is going to be most affected is Indirana genus, because they are breeding not on stagnant water, not on running water. They are breeding on vertical rock surfaces, which has very little film of water. And if this film of water dries out, none of the tadpoles of the frogs will survive. So this is one of the interesting thing about these frogs in Western Ghats. And we have many species in Western Ghats also. Another endemic family from Western Ghats is called as Nyctibatrachidae. Recently, a new genus was erected to this family called as Astrobatrachus. Otherwise, we had only Nyctibatrachus genus from Western Ghats. Now, this is one of the genus called as Nyctibatrachus. This Nyctibatrachus genus is always associated with water. They are seen inside water actually on the shallow side of fast flowing streams and all. They are almost found inside water. And Astrobatrachus are not so water preferred, but they are also associated with water. This is a recent discovery from Wayanad, Astrobatrachus kurichiarana, because it is found near from Kurichiyar Hills actually. Now, these frogs exhibit high degree of parental care. If you can see that this is a female of the frog, it is laying eggs there, and this one is a male. And they have amblexes there, and after amblex, the male forces the female to lay eggs. Once the female lay eggs, the male guards the eggs. How it guards the eggs is so not only guards the eggs, it calls from there repeatedly to take out other intruders, including males and all. And when this, if the water from these leaves, because as always I said, these all things need at least little moisture to survive on this leaves and all. So for when these frogs, when these leaves dry off, what happens is that the males go down to the water, dip itself in the water, and it comes up and it wets the eggs again. And when these eggs are ready, you can see the tadpole, it is almost ready. When these eggs are ready, it will directly, because the eggs are always laid on overhanging leaves, so that when the tadpoles are almost ready to hatch out, they can, when the tadpoles start beating from inside the egg, this has little disturbance from the egg, and then the eggs fall down into the water, and the next life cycle is carried out in water. So some of the frog species in Western Ghats show high degree of parental care also. Now, this is another species, which is not species, I see. It's a family endemic to Western Ghats, and many of you might have read in papers. And one of the interesting things is that these groups are called as dancing frogs. Why are they called dancing frogs? I'll come to you about this. Like there are many species being described in this genus. This is why they are called as dancing frogs. This way by which they show their hands and legs is called as foot flagging, as if you have flagging for helicopters and other to land, because of the high sound of helicopters and planes. If you make some sound and try to instruct them to go this way and that way, they'll not understand. So what is the easiest way? You show them the space where to do with the help of a flag. And this is the similar thing what happens to this frog, because these frogs are adapted to live in the lake torrential streams. Torrential streams will be highly noisy because of the water flowing and water falling into it, and also it will be highly noisy. So what all these calls frogs also, they also have a high pitch call also. Though this high, they have evolved to show this foot flagging, because even these high pitch calls are not sufficient enough for them to attract a mate or to challenge another male which is calling from another log. So what they do is that they try to attract female, or they wave off their opponent with the help of showing up their muscular powers by raising their hands and showing different colors of the legs and feet and all. So this is why they are called as dancing frog, because of their behavior, that they try to this is also done for male to male combat also. They try to like challenge another male with the help of this foot flagging, and also they have methods by which they show their hands to impress a female also. So this is why they are called as dancing frogs. And one of the interesting thing about this dancing frog is that they have fossorial tadpoles. What do you understand by fossorial tadpole actually? Fossorial tadpole is that, like, and this is one of the interesting questions. Like many people have asked me whenever I take a class on ordinates or like butterflies or amphibians and all, they say, what is the age, or how much years does a frog live? And I find it always difficult to give them one single answer, like it is 7 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years, just because of the fact that all those things which undergo metamorphosis, they have some stage in their life, they remain frozen as such. Their life history stops there, and they don't move from them. We don't know how much time did they spend in their metamorphosis time. We don't know how much time does a dragonfly spend in its life in the form of a larva. Similar way, I don't know how much time does a butterfly or a moth spend its time in its larval form or in its cocoon form and all. Similar is the condition of this frog also. Because these frogs, they say, the paper which describes this frog, they say that these tadpoles can survive more than 100 years as fossorial tadpoles. Because microcephals, as I say, they are found in torrential streams. They lay their eggs in these sediments in the streams. They bury their eggs. This eggs hatch out into tadpoles, and if the conditions are not favorable for them, these tadpoles hatch out and remain inside the inside the soil as fossorial tadpoles. And this is one of the adaptation of fossorial. If you look at the tadpoles of other frogs, this is one of the photo I took from, I think it is from Herpetologist National Park in Munnar. If you could look at this tadpole, you can see that it has a eel-like body structure, though it has an arm and leg and all. This is much more metamorphosis tadpole, I think, because its arms and forelegs and hind limbs has already come out. But if you look at the tail, you see it's a very much muscular tail like an eel, and it don't have a tail fin like other tadpoles, because it is not much adapted to swim through water. What it is adapted is that it is adapted to live a life inside sand, where which it can crawl through the sand. So for crawling through the sand, it has to have a very muscular body. So it has a eel. What all tadpoles shows an eel-like body, should understand that the tadpoles are fossorial. They are capable of living a life inside the sand. So this is one of the interesting things. This is because all these things are shown to endemic species, because they have been evolving in this Western Ghats since millions of years, and they have evolved their morphology and adaptation and behavior almost very much adapted to the conditions that Western Ghats has evolved over the time. So this is what happens when you destroy a species. You are destroying of the years of evolution this species has gone through. Now, this tadpole is one of those, this frog is one of the star from Western Ghats called as Nasica batrachus. It came out in nature, and it was one of the most attracted frog, though not so beautiful for others, because almost not like a frog. It's called as it's called purple frog actually. Very peculiar nose and body structure. With its forelimbs are very strong with like tarsals and tuberous and all. Not only it is very different in looking, its breeding also is like, I should come back, I think. Yeah, its breeding and behavior is also very much different. I think almost done for 1 hour. Its breeding and other things are also very much different. See, this frog comes out only by the first rains. Like if you have a good summer rain, like a post-monsoon shower is there, or a monsoon shower is there, these frogs come out. Because these are burrowing frogs, they remain burrowed under the earth. By early, if you ask me a time, by early to mid-March, May, if the rains are good, by mid-May, you can hear the sounds of these frogs underneath the earth. They slowly start making, the male starts calling. By the time the rain comes and the temperature comes down and all, they try to come out. They come out of the earth, they start breeding, they lay their eggs, they breed, they mate, they lay their eggs, and the adult male and female again goes back to the earth, goes back to the soil, and they can go back some, I think 5 to 10 meters underground, because they have strong metatarsal tubercles and all, which can help them to, because they dig through their hind limbs. They dig through the hind limbs, and it can remove soil, and it can go inside the soil as such. Like when I have seen some certain places when they dig well and all, they have seen this frog from some 10 meters below, because they can dig down to the ground where water is there. And they come out only for this breeding, very short time. And in Malayalam, we call it as Maveli frog, because as if it comes out in August time, and as if Maveli comes out for a very short time during Onam. Similar way, the frogs come out only in the month of like May, last May or early July to breed, and it comes out only for some 3 or 4 days time, and they again go back to the soil. It largely feeds on termites and other earthworms and other things which are inside the soil. And so this is the interesting thing of the adult of the species. This species was first discovered from Idukki district in Kerala, but now we understand that the species is more widely distributed. Though we had only one species called as Sahyadrensis from Western Ghats. Now another species has been discovered and named after Bhubadi sir of Sakon, scientist who passed away a couple of years from an accident in Agasthyamala. A species is discovered from the eastern side of Western Ghats, which is named after Bhubadi sir. Now, I would like to have a look at this video. Do you find a tadpole clinging onto the stream underneath the rocks on the stream? So this is a tadpole which is clinging onto the roof surface, and it is moving along. You can see it is moving upstream along this one. Now, this is the tadpole of the so-called frog Nasica batrachus sahyadrensis. What is the interesting thing of this tadpole? It has a very strong mouth part. Like it is a sucking mouth part actually. It works as if a sucker, and it can attach to the rock surfaces where torrential streams are flowing. And by moving, it releases its suckers and move up again, really catches up, and this is why it's how it moves up to the upstream. Actually, it moves upstream. And as if I said, Nasica batrachus lays eggs and tadpoles hatch out, and that this tadpoles start developing mouthparts initially, and that's why. And they feed on this algae and the other zooplanktons and my other things, micro things on the rock surface actually. And they move along the streams by clinging onto the rock surface using their mouth suckers. And one of the interesting thing is that they are very much camouflaged and has a similar color of that of a rock or all this Western Ghats rock surface always with the torrential stream flow. And when you approach the frog, like if you bring your finger near to the frog, what is the first thing it does? That it releases its mouth sucker. When immediately when it releases its mouth sucker, what happens is that the tadpole is washed down the stream, and within seconds it has escaped from you. It has not used anything of its body energy to do that. What it has just done is that it has released its mouth suckers. So the moment it releases its mouth sucker, the tadpole is washed down, and a predator, like anything, even the much brilliant predators like human beings find it difficult to catch them, because the moment you approach it, it will release its suckers from the rock surface and it will be washed down the torrential streams that is flowing down. And this is one of the specimens I have experienced. I tried to see how strong its sucker is, that it can hang on even if you with your onto your gloves. Because why I use gloves is that this one of the thing I didn't put in my slide, because in 2011 when I tried to find out if I was trying to do a research, and we tried to find out whether, because this chited fungus which is found in North America and South America has been wiping out lot number of frog species. So in 2011 or 10, we decided that we'll sample Western Ghats to see if there is chited fungus in Western Ghats. We did a large scale sampling in Western Ghats, and to find out that chited fungus is actually exists in Western Ghats, and we had the first samples from Ponbudi Hills in Trivandrum, where I could isolate a strain of chited fungus. So after that, every time I try to sample a frog and I plan to release it back, I always take care of its gloves, to wear a gloves, because I don't want the frog to be infected with something on me, or I don't want to be a transmitter of any of the fungus into the frogs also. Because as if I said before, these have very much since they are very sensitive to heat, humidity, and other things, and even your handling can give it considerable amount of damage. So it should be very careful when you handle these frogs from Western Ghats. And this is another paper which I published, because I found some albino, or not actually albino it is, but a light colored tadpoles of this Nasica batrachus sahiadensis from Valsar area. Though the tadpole is highly camouflaged, and that is one of the survival techniques of this tadpole, I found one or two individuals which are light colored in Western Ghats. Now you get an idea why did I put as Croaking barometers, because they are one of the best indicators in Western Ghats. They give you indication of the humidity, they give you indication of the temperature. It is a barometer, because barometer is something to measure pressure, and pressure is always influenced by temperature and moisturizer. Moisture, I mean, these are one of the two factors that influence pressure. So these frogs are like a barometer, because they are very sensitive to the environmental changes. A slight change in temperature, humidity can bring about a lot of loss to the diversity of amphibians from Western Ghats, and hence we should conserve these beautiful features, because as if you know, now also we have a lot of species to be described from Western Ghats. A lot of species are awaiting discoveries. We need more researchers focused to do research and identify things, because I said it's a hotspot for amphibian hotspot, which a lot of diversities, a lot of cryptic species which are very difficult to identify from morphology. You require advanced techniques like DNA barcoding, phylogenetics, acoustics to identify this and separate them out. So a lot of work has to go through. So whatever activities human beings are doing, so we are one of the drivers of climate change. We are doing a lot of anthropogenical works in Western Ghats, which are affecting the diversity and populations of these frogs. We are introducing invasive species, not only plants, but also animals. We, like, as if I said to you before, the chited fungus. The chited fungus did not come to Western Ghats as such. Chited fungus all spread to the world on the back of one of the model organism, you know, the Xenopus levis, like Xenopus levis is one of the frog species in South Africa, which is the clawed frog species, and it is used as a model organism. So this clawed frog species and an albino form is there for this species, which is very interesting, and it's used as an aquarium species. And these species has been somehow smuggled into Kerala and India in multiple parts, and they are put in aquariums. So though this frog species doesn't have, it cannot be infected by this fungus, but what all other species can be infected by fungus. When the fungus infects these frogs, what happens is that it has a very thin skin, and the skin is very permeable to gases, and salt transport all happens through the thing. When this fungus infects the skin of this organism, what happens is that it becomes a closed system, because the pores of the skins and all are infected. It no longer can transport gases or minerals out and into the skin, and it becomes a small closed system, and these frogs die out. And another one of the things you should understand, that the frogs lower um, and not the underside of the frog doesn't have any skin secretion to prevent this fungus, and the fungus infects the frogs from underneath, not from, because the dorsal side always has some antimicrobial peptide actions for this. Some secretions are there which has some antimicrobial peptide actions. So the dorsal side is almost protected with this antimicrobial peptide, but the underside is unprotected because it doesn't have any peptide or any secretions. And when you can see a frog, at times when you watch a frog, if you irritate the frog on the lower side of the frog, you can see the frog always rubs its upper side and tries to apply secretions into the lower side. I have a video also which shows a frog doing that. So we bought in this fungus, chytrid fungus, by bringing in this pet, because soon after I published my first record of chytrid fungus from Western Ghats, I had a report seen in Frog Log where I found that from somewhere in Pune, this Xenopus labis albino frog was found in wild. What happens is the albino frog is put in this aquarium. Though initially it looks very beautiful, this frog acts very weird. It pulls out the gravel and other plants from the aquarium. So when this owner gets fed out over this, he slowly throws it out in the wild, and it is open in the wild, and it spreads this fungus to our endemic species, which is capable of wiping out. Though the pathogen was found in Western Ghats, we didn't have much loss of amphibians, as I understand, because this chytrid fungus not quite influential on frogs of Western Ghats, I believe. So much of our frogs survived. So we should be very careful in protecting these. We should watch for this conservation of these species. And I now believe that you might have understand frogs are not the ugly creatures you find on Earth. They are one of the most beautiful, one of the most sensitive, and one of the most respectable creatures you find, because of all these behavioral patterns you see. And always you believe that all these organisms are part of a food chain of food web, and they have a very vital role to play. You will have a catastrophic destruction only when one of the species that links the food chain of food web is lost and the food chain starts crashing. As if you all know the story of Yellowstone National Park. Similar way, we will only understand one instance of such large scale occur. Otherwise, we'll still believe that humans are one of the superior organisms on Earth. You can overdrive all those things. And I now like to wind it up. I have taken more than enough time, I think. I thank you all for your kind patience, and I think I'm open to questions from your end.
Thank you so much, Sujith.
Yeah, thank you, madam.
Very interesting talk and wonderful pictures also.
Thank you.
I think 23 questions are waiting in the Q&A box.
Yeah, I can take it. Where do I find the question? Okay. Okay, I think Q&A. Okay. Which are one of the question is, which are the edible frog species in Kerala? How can it be identified? Yeah, quite interesting question. Edible frog species are called, like you have Hoplobatragus tigrinus and Euphylactus caravali, Hexadactyla. These are all known as to be edible species. Euphylactus caravali and Hexadactyla are green in color, and these bullfrogs are known for its exceptionally large size and pointed mouth. And that is where you identify, but don't use this identification feature to hunt down frogs. That is what request from my end. Can you speak about female frogs who carry male frogs on the back? Yeah, it's like all frogs. Like when they do this process is called as amblexus. That you all know the fertilization is external, but the male has a role in making the female lay eggs, and then it puts it. Then it fertilizes it. So all female frogs carry males on the back, because males are in frog species. Certain males are smaller than females always, and females can always carry. And the process by which the frogs attach onto the female is called as amblex actually. So this is a mating procedure. Nowadays frogs are in the state of what are the reasons and how revamp the species. I think I have explained it in my question. There are a lot of things. Anthropological restriction is there. Climate change plays a heavy role in that. You have invasive species, many features that affects the frog. How you identify the frog at different morphological feature using molecular studies. Yeah, you have many gene sequences that can be used for like different morphological using molecules. Yeah, those technique is like not only frogs, you all identify much of the larger organisms and invertebrates and vertebrates using the technique called as DNA barcoding or molecular phylogenetics, where you use a gene sequence like cytochrome oxidase 1, 16S, 12S. These sequences are used, they are amplified, and their sequences are compared to see if you see very less divergence is there between the sequence, you put them as a single species. You find there is high divergence between the sequence, and there is also a cutoff for each gene. Like if you say it is 2%, 4% for a gene and all. If it is more than 4%, you can consider it as a new species, or it's an evolving species to be a new species. And if you can together it with the morphological variations you find, you can declare it as a new species. How to become a herpetologist? Can you explain? One of the thing is that if it's a difficult question, how to become all species. When you like, if you want to learn ordinates, you need to look into ordinates. If you want to be a herpetologist, you need to look detail into frogs and reptiles, and that is the only way. Whether red frogs are found here, yeah, Ginu, that is a how do frogs mate? Yeah, as if I said, I did explain multiple behaviors, mating and all for frogs. I don't think there is a whether red frogs are found. That is an interesting question. If you could see that there are different frog species which are red in color, and if you say is the red their permanent color, I'm not sure about it. They can change color to a certain extent depending upon the external environment there where they are there, because you know when you go to Western Ghats, you have multiple, like Western Ghats is always vibrant in colorations, and you have almost different microhabitat condition which is very different in color. So they have a certain ability to change colors. And if you say how, it's a long mechanism and it is difficult for me to explain, but still there are some changes happening on the skin surfaces which can change color very rapidly. They also have a long-term color change, also a short-term color change. That is a big question actually. Please state a good illustrated okay, identification guide. Oh, I think a recent one is yet to come. You have a guide from Daniels is there. One of the guides published in Kerala State Biodiversity Board is called this there, which is like there is an app also. Biodiversity Board Shivaprasad book is there, which is little more. But yet we are to have a better guide for amphibians. Can we use frogs as an ecological indicator to categorize areas as distributed, undistributed, polluted, and polluted? Yeah, of course, frogs is one of the best indicators because, as if I said to you, I explained why it is a barometer, why it's an ecological indicator. Like all this because you have to, when you say you look at a frog and you can say the temperature, no, it is not like that. You should always monitor the population and diversity of frogs. If you can monitor the population diversity, if the population is shrinking, you should know there is something going on in the environment, some pollution is there, or some climate change is affecting them, some fungal infection is there, and all. As if I said, when it was a triple lockdown here in Kerala, I used to get my ears near to my windows, which is opens out into a plantations. And I used to hear the sounds of frogs, and I see that, yeah, something is going good out there. So it, it is something a good feeling also. What are the major species and semi-arid regions? Maybe that's a difficult question. There are a lot of species in semi-arid areas. But always the topics are more diverse. Is there any database of called reference? I think there is a app which is which can developed by Guru Raja. I think there is an app which has different varieties of frogs. And always you should believe that you cannot identify frog from single call. Frogs can make multiple calls or multiple variations, and these calls indicate different things. Normally for mating and other things and all, they use a particular call, and I think that call has been given in this Guru Raja's app. Speak on the morphological structure of Spirotheca brifescens. Yeah, it is very difficult when you say morphological feature is that its head is very different from other Minervaria genuses. It's a broader head and with some shaggy underparts. The one of the all these burrowing species, the interesting thing is that they tubercles. They have this tubercles on the surface, which will be developed as something like a spade, so that it can be used for digging. And that is one of the identification feature, all these burrowing species. And Spirotheca is a burrowing species of frog, which comes out only for breeding. Is the bio-environmental some change do occur that frogs, shallow snakes, how this is possible? Yeah. It is not bioenvironmental change. I spoke out about that one particular species of frog called Hoplobatrachus tigrinus, otherwise called as Indian bullfrog. One of the interesting thing about this frog is that it is capable of eating anything that it can. If it is capable of eating a snake, it can eat a snake, and there has been record where I think a juvenile rat snake or water snake, something was consumed by this frog. There are records of this frog consuming chicks, like I think small birds and all. It can consume anything that it can swallow up as such. Suggest keys for species identification. It's a big question. Like it depends upon which genus you are looking into. On certain genus, you have to look into its what I say into its webbing. One of the identification features is webbing. It depends. It depends on what species or what genus you are looking into. According to that, the species keys differ. You know, maybe sometimes you will have to look into webbing, sometimes look into hand, see which finger is, maybe for some species, first finger will be bigger than second finger, third will be bigger than second. So it depends upon which species and which genus you are looking into. After MSc, what are the requirements to get a job as a concerned biologist? Still, I don't know because I'm searching for a job. I just finished my PhD. That's a big question, I think. But yeah, always work hard, put your passions in front, and I think you will find a job. What were you finding regarding your research about best ecological indicators? Yeah, I believe I target on two species as one of the best ecological indicators. One is frogs, which I do my research on. Secondly, I work with an NGO. No, I'm a founding member of an NGO called, and a founding executive member, conservative biologist of an NGO called Society for Ordinate Studies. We did constitute this NGO because it is one of the best indicators, ordinates. So if you could monitor ordinates and frogs, you could very well identify the ecological programs or problems in them. So I find these two one of the best indicators when compared to birds, butterflies, and all. Maybe more research are required in this field. How do we differentiate between tree frogs and normal frogs? Yeah, it is a bit difficult question, but normally all those frogs which climb on trees, they will have some developments in their feet or hands. On some frogs, you can see the digits will be enlarged, like a disc-like appearance will be there on the digits rather than pointed digits. That's an adaptation by which the frogs can easily climb onto trees. They have some dermal fringes so that they can glide a bit from tree to tree. Dermal fringes between the arms and legs. Dermal fringes are developed. And next is that they also have some better webbing on their hands and feet so that they can hold on to trees and branches. So these are the different, one of the, maybe it is found in ground frogs also, like Indirana also has that. Maybe Indirana came down to this one, some evolution happened in that way. I don't know about that. But normally identification feature is that enlarged digits, like skin folds between arms and hands, and just webbings. These three features, if you look, you can identify them. Normal and tree frogs. Still now we don't have identified any tree poisonous frogs from Western Ghats. All we know is that certain secretions from certain frogs can cause itching. Can you say about damselflies? What about found in monsoon? Do you know you could have my number? I think it's out of the question is out. It's not on frogs, but I can answer that because I do work on dragonflies and damselflies. Nice session. What about changing tendency of frogs? Interesting. Changing is the reflection divergence in the evolutionary pattern of frogs. Yeah, we don't know because we cannot because as if you understand when you speak about evolutions, we are able to speak about evolutions from fossils, and now we have this molecular studies which can give an insight into evolutions. But apart from that, when you speak about evolutionary patterns, you need a large number of database consisting of multiple gene studies and all. Maybe I'm not at a stage where now I could say if there's something changing in that, but maybe there are some changes happening in near future, which we will not witness because even a nucleotide change takes place some 100 million years or some 10 or 1 million years at least, which should be adopted. What are the threats faced by frogs? Is there any frog that go extinct due to any reason within 15 years? There are a lot of frog species which can go extinct. Like I said, even we are at a state that the one virus is threatening our lives. There are a lot of frog species because see, all populations of these frog species are in Western Ghats, and which is a chain of mountains, and a single epidemic can wipe out, like a chital fungus, something like can wipe out frogs from Western Ghats. They have a threat from that. I said a rising temperature, change in climatic condition is one of the most threatening things, because consistent change in temperatures, irregularities in monsoon they are bringing down the population to a great level. We don't know, like it may not be 50, like even the 186 species what you find in Western Ghats, all of them are quite go extinct if something goes wrong very wrongly. And we should, because all these anthropological activities, the invasive species and all, these are bringing down their populations to a good level. And we know, if you look at the IUCN status of much of these frogs are going down, they are decreasing in number, the population trend is decreasing. So it's quite easy that they can go extinct in next 50 years, next 10 years or something like that. And we don't see, there are more undiscovered frog species in Western Ghats. We don't quite know how many species has gone extinct without even naming them. Without being discovered, how many species has gone extinct also, we don't know about that. Is there any symbiotic relation between snails and frogs? I have seen few pictures of Instagram showing two snails perched on the top of frogs and all. Not till now, I mean, I don't know if there is any frog species are there, which has some like some association with snails and all. Not at I've not seen anything like that. I have not learned of anything. Maybe they feed on certain snakes. Apart from that, I don't know any symbiotic association is there between them. Do polypedator species have parental care? Polypedator species, as compared to that, every frog species has some amount of parental care exhibited by them, because they always take care that the offsprings are being put in the right space, their eggs are laid in the right space. So always some amount of parental care are shown by every frog. Apart from that, polypedators doesn't show much amount of parental care, but yeah, they also guard their eggs to certain good level. Is there any photographic specification to be taken by taking care photos of frogs? I was done in ordinates. Yeah. Frogs, certain frogs have much more complicated taxonomy other than ordinates. One of the main reason is that Western Ghats have similar microhabitat condition at multiple levels. So they have almost evolved to be somewhat like similar. So when you take photos, actually, it's more like a foolishness to identify a frog from photos. Need to know about the geographical range of the frog. That is one of the interesting thing. You could always mention where did you find the frog from. Second thing is that you need to always have a, like in you see doing ordinates, you should always have a dorsal and lateral view photo, and photos from multiple angles if possible. Like I don't recommend handling frogs. Otherwise, if you are a researcher and you're quite sure you're going to learn that, I would like to have photos of this footwear, photos of their hands and all, so that it is more, we can confirm that this is this species. Other than that, certain species are very difficult to confirm. So photos from multiple angles are required. And I cannot say you very specifically, like in ordinates, you look for this. We have this appendages where you look at it is different. But for frogs, taxonomic features are different for different genus. So always try to take photos from multiple angles. What is the measure that can be done to conserve as citizen scientists? Yeah. One of the things citizen scientists has been always, like as if you have been doing in ordinates, that is always important that we spread awareness. We spread awareness like we have been doing in ordinates. We spread awareness about this. We spread how sensitive these species are. And yeah, you vouch for them. This is one of the way a citizen scientist can do. Second thing is that, as if we have been doing for ordinates, if you could document these things from multiple parts, we can. Right now, what happens is that apart from these birds, we don't have it. Very much data to say what is the conservation status, what is the population status of a frog. So, as a citizen scientist, documenting frog is one of the important things that you can do. You can document them, you can photograph them, you can put it in iNaturalist, you can put somebody else, and we should try to document them first to know what is the population status of these frogs, what is the diversity, what all spaces this frogs occupy, what all microhabitat or habitat conditions these frogs are found, and that is important. why there is no marine amphibians? Maybe this question should you ask to yourself, because I've been saying to you, they are intolerant to salt because the skin is permeable. If they intake salt water in, their sodium levels and conditions will change, and they will die off, so they cannot salt water. Can we identify all species? No, never, because I say frogs much converge ecology very much difficult. You'll not be able to do that at all. They require. There is no poisonous frogs in Western Ghats. Which are the poisonous frogs? We don't have any poisonous frogs. How many species of poisonous frogs or no species of poisonous frogs are found in Western Ghats? How some species widely distributed over Western Ghats, and what are some? Yeah, interesting question from Ongar. See, what drives distribution of a species? A species is widely distributed. If you look at, like, I know, Ongar, you will be honestly looking at some phylogenetic questions. If you look at the evolutionary series, you could see that once the species try to have features to adapt to multiple microhabitat conditions, they start to distribute. They start to distribute widely. And some small species like Gadicellus astrops, Variabilis, or Nyctibatrachus and all, should look at smaller Nyctibatrachus species. They may be endemic to one particular stream as such. Maybe some 100 square kilometers, not more than that. This is because they cannot, they have been evolved to that particular area. And maybe some species are evolved to some particular area, but slowly they get adaptations and they start to get adapt to multiple conditions. They start spreading out, and that causes distribution. And if you could look that there are certain species in Western Ghats, like there's a paper published on this amphibian called as Ichthyopis bombayensis, which is a bottleneck evolution. What does a bottleneck means? That the species was once extinct from its complete range. It came to one certain point. From that, again, it evolved in such a way that it could adapt to multiple conditions, and again, it started distribution. So when this type of distribution happens, what you can see that if you collect the entire species from entire range, and if you do a molecular study, we find the divergence is quite low. And that is the indication of bottleneck. Maybe we should discuss in person. Can you find frogs in desert? Yeah, there are certain frog species which is adapted to desert conditions. Wrong thoughts and frogs which arrived first in the evolutionary timeline. I don't still remember which was, but like it is like we cannot say is that monkeys that came into evolutionary timeline one, or it is humans that came into, because these both had a common ancestor and they divided from there as such. It's always like that. If you see, we cannot say we evolved from monkeys, but we had a common ancestor from which they diverged and evolved. This is how it happens. Heavy rainfall before monsoon due to cyclone will affect the life cycle. Oh, of course, it will affect the life cycle. If after this heavy rainfall, there is going to be a large gap in that, and the water pools, if the rock surfaces are going to dry up, yeah, you're going to have a catastrophic destruction of this one also. Please explain what alien plant species and how they threaten amphibians, especially anurans in Western Ghats. Now, I'm not saying it is alien. See, this is what I said. It is not such. You when you look at threat for a species, it's not that there is a direct threat. There is an indirect threat. Like if some plant species is going to, like if I say if some invasive species, invasive species is going to be favorable to some species, like it is giving a hideout or something for a other species which is a predator of amphibians, then it is an advantage for the predator. So it is an indirect effect. It's an indirect effect where a predator gets an advantage because of an alien species. So whenever this is a thing which I explain to every project that is happening in Western Ghats, I say to them that when you interfere into Western Ghats, when you interfere into ecologically to any ecosystem, should be very careful, because ecosystem is highly sensitive, highly balanced, and when your intrusion, even if you just doing it for your good reasons, if your intrusion is not going to create a positive effect, then what is happening is that a catastrophic destruction is going to happen. So this is very much a balance in the ecosystem, and any invasive species, if it is going to make advantage to any species, the other species is going to get affected. So you do ever think that it is not only direct, but there is also indirect changes that is going to affect the ecosystem. Among frogs and frogs, this I think I came up once. Is there any app, something which can record calls and identify? Yeah, I mean, you can record it from normal call recorders. Other than that, there are certain new techniques available, like you record bird sounds and all, which can be more sensitive and records. How to differentiate between males and female frogs? Yeah, you cannot differentiate a male and female frog quite easily for all families and genus. Like in microhyla, it will be quite difficult. But other than that, there is like you call sexual dimorphism is there, where males and females are different, not even in size, they differ in colors also. But in breeding season, there is something called as a nupital frog pad that appears on the first finger of the frogs, and that is one of the identifications we can easily identify males and females, because this nupital finger is something like it is developed to get a grip on the female actually. So that is happening, and that is one of the features. And I can say that normally in breeding season the male gets some amount of good colorations, and all it becomes a little more showy to the female. So in that way you can identify, but it's not for all families. Certain families don't have much like sexual dimorphism as if in other species, and males are always a little more slender also. Can the frogs be controlled environment in terrarium like foreigner step frogs as well? This Felix, I am against keeping any frogs as pet, because taking out any species from environment is you are destroying the environment. Yeah. And yeah, Anu, you can join the NGO which I mentioned, Society for Ordinate Studies. You are more welcome to that. You can go to net and type in Society for Ordinate Studies. You'll get an email address. You need to write to us that why do you want to join Society for Ordinate Studies. All people who are interested in ordinates are welcome to us, and you have many counterparts in this chat also who is members of Society for Ordinate Studies. Can you explain on nesting behaviors in frogs? Yeah. See, certain species are like when you say it's nesting behavior, it's not like birds and all that they create a nest and all, but there are certain frog species they use leaves and all these things for behaviors, and they are normally all these are done in Dracophoridae frogs. They have this trying to build on this overhanging nest leaf surfaces where they normally lay eggs inside a froth, and a froth, that is, the froth is some mucus is secreted, and those mucus is beaten up by the inlets of the female frogs, and it becomes a froth-like thing. And in that, the eggs are deposited, and that's one of the type of nest buildings that is found in frogs. Mobile number, please. More queries. Yeah, please contact Disha madam. You will get your mobile number. Now I'm not quite this one. I put my mobile number in the chat here: 9895428102. Is there any parasitic disease that affects peculiarly in frogs or Western Ghats? Yeah, we have found there are certain parasites that affects frogs. I said even we had some fungal infections seen in frogs in Western Ghats, but they are not into that level that they have challenging the frogs of Western Ghats a lot right now. But yeah, there are certain papers that came out of internal parasites. That certain papers are there which are mentioned about fungal infection other than this one, but we didn't find it in a large scale. Maybe the report is for few individuals in particular areas and all. We didn't find it in a large scale. So quite for now, it's all safe, I think. Then I think Sri Lakshmi has a question. Brief about Kalinga frog. Sri Lakshmi, can you give me the scientific name of the species? It's quite difficult for me to follow this common name. Is there any mimicry frogs present in Western Ghats to escape from predators? Yeah. See, if this is one of the interesting questions. You have many different kind of mimicry, right? Like if you take up the human behavior, if you find a species which is brilliantly colored, colors of red, colors of blue, colors of black, what is the first thought that comes to your mind? You always feel it is a danger sign, right? And that is a mimicry that frogs is exhibiting. So it is somewhat evolved, that mimicry. Other than that, I cannot say that it's because we don't have any poisonous frogs from Western Ghats, so it mimics a poisonous frog. But it has this coloration which mimics and informs us that yeah, it's a danger. Since we have learned and we have experienced now that we know there is no poisonous frogs from Western Ghats. Otherwise, if you don't know that, and if you pick up a frog and if you cause some skin irritations and there's a quite brightly colored, you always throw it some poisonous in there. So see, so it's always a mimicry is there in all organisms, which says that yeah, there is a certain amount of poison in these frogs because it is brightly colored. I mean, we associated the red brightly colors, fluorescent colors always with some danger signal. So that is a mimicry that occurs in frogs, because it has occurred not only for human beings, but maybe it has been successful in evading out much of the predators. Please tell about the predators of toads and toxins secreted. I believe toads, there is like much of the predators of the frogs are snakes. There are some reptiles doing that. Birds are there. And I think they have all learned that these frogs are, they don't have much toxins to to prevent them from being eaten, because they are widely consumed. You can see that these frogs are one of the like integral part of the food chain, that lot of them are being consumed as prey. Any kind of, yeah, frogs has do frogs show any kind of mating? Yeah, there is. As I said to you in the chat before, there is male to male compact between frogs. A lot of frogs fight off. They first show some warning signals. They try to croak out and say, yeah, I can inflate larger than your throat. I can call out louder than you. And these are the signals they first indicate. Then they go for a fight, like Gusti fights. There are many pictures. If you go to see male to male compact, there is some interesting pictures coming up in net and all, where you can find that they actually fight it out, fighting from each other. So they maintain territory and they don't want any other male to intrude into the territory. If you go for this Necrosalus species, you can see that certain perches on the stones, on the sides of streams and all, there some males occupy these places and they call out from this region and say warn other males that, yeah, this is my territory. Only certain females can come into the territory. Otherwise, this is mine. This is done. And when you come to bush frogs, the certain bush, which is some at a good position, are heavily guarded by certain males so that other males don't come there. Heavy rains before monsoon due to cyclone other will affect the life cycle of frogs. Is the question discussed or is discussed? Yeah, it is discussed. I think, yeah, because it is there. I said one of the thing that comes up is that it change always brings about a change in temperature and other things, and this facilitate the frogs to lay eggs. And once they lay eggs and tadpoles are hatched out, and if you feel that after the heavy rains there is going to be a long time and there is no rain, the lakes or the stagnant water bodies where the frogs lay their eggs and the tadpoles are there dried off, then there is going to be a large loss in the population number of tadpoles and the other things. The source are avoided by animals because they are toxic secretions of the predators are different from. Maybe they don't have some certain talk. See, as if I said to you, you may feel difficult to catch a common toad because it has certain secretions that you find it is some certain itching thing can happen to your hands and all. But other than that, I have seen snakes catch toads and all. So not much predators avoid toads and all, because they find. I have seen dogs eat for dogs, fox eat them. So I don't think there is much predators that, because you see when these toads evolve toxins to avoid predators, the predators also evolve a mechanism so that it can consume these toxic frogs and all. So I don't think that is a successful strategy for these frogs, but maybe certain they could have this not toxic, but this irritant secretions might have they have helped them to evade some species. I think. Jisha madam, has I answered all questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sujith. You have answered all the questions very effectively.
Yeah.
Shall we wind up the session?
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Now I invite Dr. Divya PS, Assistant Professor of Zoology, SN College, Kollam, for the formal vote of thanks. Over to Divya.
Thank you, Jish teacher. Namaskaram. കൊല്ലം ശ്രീനാരായണ കോളേജിൽ IQSയുടെ ആഭിമുഖ്യത്തിൽ സംഘടിപ്പിക്കുന്ന അന്താരാഷ്ട്ര വെബിനാർ പരമ്പരയുടെ ഭാഗമായുള്ള 36ാമത് പ്രഭാഷണമാണ് ഇന്നിവിടെ നടന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞത്. ആദ്യമായി ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു വെബിനാർ സംഘടിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിന് എല്ലാവിധ പിന്തുണയും നൽകി വരുന്ന കോളേജിന്റെ ആദരണീയനായ പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ ഡോക്ടർ സുൽകുമാർ സാറിന് അഗോര ടീം അംഗങ്ങളുടെ പേരിലുള്ള നന്ദി അറിയിക്കുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി ഇന്നത്തെ പ്രഭാഷണ വിഷയമായ ക്രോക്കിംഗ് ബാരോമീറ്റേഴ്സ് ഫ്രോഗ്സ് ഓഫ് വെസ്റ്റേൺ ഗാട്ട് എന്ന വിഷയത്തിൽ മുഖ്യ പ്രഭാഷണം നടത്തിയ കൺസർവേഷൻ ബയോളജിസ്റ്റും ഹെർപ്പറ്റോളജിസ്റ്റും റിസർച്ച് സ്കോളറുമായ ഗോപാലിന് കൊല്ലം ശ്രീനാരായണ കോളേജിന്റെ പേരിലും IQAC അഗോര ടീം അംഗങ്ങളുടെ പേരിലുമുള്ള നന്ദി അറിയിക്കുന്നു. കൂടാതെ കോളേജ് IQAC